to digest fiber, okay? Because fiber is not digested. In the past, people thought it was useless roughage. Now we know that it's extremely important to help us protect us from many disease processes. So now, does this mean that if everybody in this room is eating healthfully, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nothing artificial, nothing processed, does that mean none of us are going to have diabetes, none of us are going to get cancer, none of us are going to have blood pressure?
But of course.
But of course. Jeff, I like the way you think. So realistically,
To be reduced.
be reduced, okay? And it's a lot easier. I always talk about that ounce of prevention. If we're able to focus on that ounce of prevention, in my view, that's always better than worrying later about the 5 pounds of cure. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Rob, I know you probably, in this class has probably covered it at one time or another, I can't quite recall it, but is there an average time where someone's trying to make the change? Like, I've cut out, I would say roughly 85, maybe 90% of all processed foods, and I used to eat them daily. I mean, you know, of course, you know, and I've lost weight and I feel a lot better and everything else. I think I shared that with you before. I feel like I picked up some energy.
Right.
But is there a time where your taste changes? You know, like we talked earlier, you know, the smell,
Right.
You look and see something, you know, trying to cut back on meat, you know, for instance.
Right.
I was a great beef eater and also a pork eater as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
Now I've cut out all of that pork all at once, but I still like my beef once in a while and stuff like that. But to go to a strict vegetarian diet,
Right.
is there a period of time, an average period of time where the taste buds would change where I would really, and I love my vegetables, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about the development of habits.
Habits, okay.
Okay, and kind of a retraining of taste preference, and again, I think there's going to be an argument of a lot of individual variations.
Well, I realize that not everybody's the same, and it
Right.
takes time, but you know, because I'm aware of it.
Right. I had a lady that was so addicted to sugar. I mean, she was drinking massive amounts of sodas, you know, lots of sugar in her daily routine, you know, and we pretty much, I just challenged her to go on a sugar fast for 1 week. And I got to tell you, you know, it was profound. After 1 week, she came back to see me, and she goes, you know, I cannot believe it. I'm not craving those things. I'm really not even thinking about it. But she goes, would you give me that challenge again? Because I want to do it for another week. And I'm just going, you know, I think that's when we put our minds to it. When we start talking about habits, well, we go to the gym, okay? So we start going to the gym. And after a week, we're probably not going to be going, yep, this is now part of my daily routine. I can't live without it. But I got to tell you, the second week, the third week, by the time we get about 4 weeks under our belt, I would say most of the scientific studies are actually going to tell us, you know, we're going to be well on our way to you know, a better habit. Yes, do you have your hand?
Yeah. When I attended a seminar by a physician, he was saying that it takes about 3 months to change your taste buds. If you decide one day, you're going to avoid all free fats in your diet, at the end of that point, you actually don't like them.
Right.
I guess that's the answer that I was looking for. Is there a time when you will develop a negative thing against certain foods?
Sure. You know, and that's, again, individually, even after a week, to have individuals go, you know, I don't even like sugar. You go to the gym for a month. The probability of you going back to the gym regularly the second month is much higher. You know, 3 months. And if that was based on, you know, scientific studies, I'm just going, you know, I think, again, when we have our minds wrapped around this, and we start understanding, you know what, my pancreas needs me to help. And when we have a better understanding of what's going on with our bodies and our total body response to everything that we're eating, everything that we're doing, you know, How's our body responding to less caffeine?
Well,
Well, you know, and it's just, it is profound when someone completes a month. You know, theoretically, I have a lady this last week that she's now 4 years sober. Okay? So 4 years sober. She shouldn't even alcohol, right? If a month, 2 weeks without it, you know, 3 months without it, well, she shouldn't even, that should never be an issue for her, right?
until something triggers.
Yeah. So again, you know, I think that's where the argument is definitely going to be, we have got to have our minds. And I think one of the primary forces right now at work with this particular individual is the fact that her quality of life is so much higher. And even though she has some cravings at times, she does not give in to those cravings because she's now got her mind in a completely different place and is able to stop those thought processes, command central in charge.
When you give up something, it seems to me like you need something to take its place. If you give up a negative, you need a good positive to take its place.
Yes.
Well, and I won't disagree. So basically, we've got to have some strategies. If I'm going to give up caffeine, what am I going to put in its place? Well, hopefully something that's going to be helpful and not something that's going to give me this artificial high. And hopefully something that's not going to cause the blood vessels of my body to constrict. Okay? And it's just so imperative. You know, a gentleman came in this week and his blood sugar was, or excuse me, blood pressure was off the charts. Pulse rate was 112. And I'm sitting here going, whoa, you know, we really like your blood pressure about 40 points lower, you know, both systolic and diastolic. That pulse rate, wow, what's going on? He says, yeah, my heart's going like a trip hammer. He says, I don't do this very often, but I had 3 cigarettes and a Red Bull. And he goes, you know, I do a Red Bull every once in a while, but he goes, I know they're not good for me, so I'm just really trying to get rid of that. And it was just exciting because we had a discussion of total body response. His body was responding to not only the Red Bull, but the fact that he had 3 cigarettes. And he goes, oh my word, I had no idea. He says, I'm not going to do those again. I'm going, awesome.
What did he replace it with?
The beautiful thing, you know, and basically, I think that's kind of where, as we go, we get to the point where we don't necessarily need something to replace the Red Bull. He's not going to need something to replace the cigarette, other than maybe going out for a walk or you know, getting some you know, improving his exercise. You know, and it's kind of as we go through life. You know, it's like when my daughters were young, and you know, we're trying to get them off of their binky. You know, so we take the binky out of you know, my youngest's mouth, you know, pacifier, and she starts getting this really sad look on her face, and she's looking around for her binky, and I'm going, so does that mean that I give in and give her the binky back?
No, give her a carrot stick.
How about we even start working on some strategies where she doesn't need to suck on her thumb or a binky or anything, because before long she realizes she doesn't really need that.
Thumb sucking is kind of hard if you've taken a binky away
Okay.
to break, because
Just
they need a pacifier of some sort.
okay, but see that's you know, getting into how our mind works.
You went from one bad thing to another.
Right. So why would I need to replace something that's not good, especially if it has zero function? That's my point. And as we go, you know, we've been talking about strategies of how do I not go to the refrigerator when I get stressed? What do I do? Okay, so this is just incredibly important. You know, and we've got to develop that cognitive behavioral strategy. We've got to retrain thought process. When I get stressed, should food be part of that? No?
Well, it's just so easy to go to the cover of the refrigerator when you're stressed out and you're thinking about something else and trying to get your work schedule going.
Right.
And
So what happens if we start going out for a walk, we start doing something, you know, more positive, and then before long, we don't have that much stress, right? Yes, Randall?
I've been reading Ecclesiastes a little bit, and, you know, the wisest man that ever lived was apparently Solomon. He asked for wisdom, and God gave it to him. And what's interesting about his life was, you know, he had everything. And if a man had everything, he had everything. He had more women than he admits it. More women than a man could possibly want. I had slaves, I had vineyards, I had gold, I had silver. He built dams, he built water cisterns. He had a beautiful home. He had everything. And he just realized that none of that brought him happiness. And the only thing that brought him happiness, it's really interesting, it says here that he decided that the most important things in life are satisfaction in your work and enjoyment of your food. Those are the things that actually brought him happiness. And then he concludes here, he says, I concluded that life without God has no more purpose than chasing the wind. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, knowledge is dangerous because the more of the stuff we learn, the more we realize.
Then we start thinking we have all the answers.
We have all the answers.
Yeah.
And it becomes a burden.
Right.
And without God, you're chasing the wind.
Exactly. So we can have everything, but have missed everything. If we don't have God in our lives, and if we don't have our priorities in order.
He's the one that gives the power. And
absolutely.
When I smell that barbecue, and I have that craving, I have to say, okay, look at this.
I like it. I like it. Like it. Thank you. Yes.
I think the biggest thing with most people is when you have to make a change, fear kicks in right away. Oh, I've got to do this. I don't know if I can do that. And I think you've already touched on it, is the mindset is taking that initial step, and instead of looking at a program that could be 6 months, a year, or however long, that challenge. Yeah, that challenge that you said, well, you try this for 7 days, or even 5 days, or something like that. Something where they can grasp hold of it and say, okay, I could do that within a week, and I'll be okay. And then I could go back to my crutches or whatever,
Right. So much like the individual with the A1C of 13, I got to tell you, it was so exciting because before long, it wasn't me sitting there telling him which directions he needed to go. It wasn't the diabetic educator, saying, well, this and this and this. It was him going, I am so excited because I'm making positive changes in my life and I am seeing a direct influence. And all of a sudden now Command Central is understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it. And we're starting to see these positive changes. And the bonus is we start recognizing that it's helping protect us from some of these disease processes. Fiber also found in natural plant foods, 2 groups, soluble and insoluble. Plants have a mixture of different fibers. Oftentimes we find one predominantly. Insoluble fibers are mainly in cereals. So again, that's going to be more the grain. Soluble, found mainly in fruit. Nuts kind of have a mixture of both. Okay, so here I am. I'm going, well, I know that it's helping boost the good bacteria in my GI tract. I know that by exercising and reducing caffeine and incorporating these foods into my daily program, I'm doing nothing but improving. I'm reading scripture. I'm starting to understand that the wisest man that ever lived understood this, right? Solomon, King Solomon, had everything. And now I'm sitting here going, wow. And then our text today, we're not supposed to stress. Our text 2 weeks ago said this isn't salvational. And we're not supposed to judge others that, may not appreciate a good barbecue smell. Right? Right, Randall?
Right.
You can appreciate the smell. I mean,
Okay.
enjoy the smell.
There's nothing more invigorating than a tofu barbecue, let me tell you. Yes.
No, like I'm just wondering, like you were talking about people that go to the fridge, not that I do. Like
Sure.
nonstop.
Right,
They
right.
don't like, oh, I don't know.
Absolutely.
So maybe, you know, if you kind of say, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore, it's kind of sometimes hard to like suddenly change everything overnight. You know?
Yes.
Some people can.
Yes.
Some people can. And
Some people have to.
Yeah, and some people have to, but
Okay.
maybe for that person, maybe even if it's one thing at a time, like if you see small changes in your life.
Absolutely.
Over time, it's gonna get there and there and there. You know,
And-
it might be, you know, maybe replace all the stuff in your fridge with good foods, and if you're continually going to the fridge, at
Oh,
least it's
yeah.
carrots or
That's what I tell her,
cucumbers.
don't bring candy home.
Right?
Bring candy home and it's there, I'm gonna eat it.
Yep.
But if you don't bring it home, I don't have that temptation, it's just
Right.
right
So
there.
bring the good stuff home.
Right, so you're enjoying some fruit instead of that. Okay.
So I go look through all the cupboards, where's the candy? Well,
Right.
it's right there.
Right. There you go.
Okay, Adam, believe.
So, and it can be very tiring to go through all the cupboards. I love it. Yes, Doc.
Well, sometimes we get fixated on the symptoms of the problem instead of the cause.
Okay.
Going to the fridge is the symptom of something.
Uh-huh.
And so treating the symptoms doesn't always fix it very effectively.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not wrong to do what was suggested, put healthier snacks around you.
Sure, sure.
That works.
Ideally, you don't want a snack.
Right,
But find out what is it that you're looking for.
right.
Find out what the cause is. Is it because of anxiety, that something's on your mind?
Uh-huh.
Find a more effective way to treat the anxiety. Is
Right.
it because you're fearful of money problems?
Right, right.
Or some loneliness because you've lost a family member?
Okay.
You know, there's reasons why we're going there. Once we go there, it becomes a habit. But if we think about it long enough, we can usually, with the help of a friend, talk it out and figure out what's the cause, and that's a more effective.
Another good reason to have friends, isn't it? Absolutely. So it's creative strategies in treatment strategies. Yes.
Being a diabetic is really hard because sometimes at night, you're not supposed to snack before you go to bed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, when you don't snack before you go to bed and you end up with a blood sugar of 54,
Uh-huh.
it's like, uh-oh.
Right.
So have a little protein before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps it kind of like at a normal. And it's difficult, when you're trying to not snack before to go to bed and
Right.
to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning at a 54 or lower.
Right, right.
It's kind of scary. At
Yep.
least you wake up.
Absolutely.
Some people don't understand that when they feel kind of funny at night, don't understand why. It's because their blood sugars have fallen so bad
Right.
and they need something.
Well,
So-
it's also along those lines, that treatment strategy of keeping blood sugars up like we would a balloon. So we got a balloon that we're trying to keep up,
Right.
and so we're eating every 2 hours. And there are so many folks out there that are out there trying to eat every 2 hours. And if we start recognizing that it's the quality of fuel that we put into the fuel tank.
That's just it. It's the quality of fuel.
Yes, ma'am.
So having a little bit of cheese, like some string cheese or something, it's not a lot,
Mm-hmm.
although it's 80 calories and that adds up after time, but at least a little bit of protein of a few nuts,
Mm-hmm.
some cheese or
So,
whatever.
and again, a lot of individual variations over the years, but it's so fun to take a brittle diabetic and actually get them to the point where we actually have a 3-meal-a-day schedule, and we are completely negating the need of snacking between meals or eating before we go to bed, simply because the quality of fuel and the amount of fuel given during the day has now caused our body to start normalizing.
Right.
And I got to tell you, there's nothing more exciting than having achieved optimum glycemic control by incorporating those strategies. But it is a strategy that does not happen overnight. It's a process, just like any one of us. Whether we're stopping caffeine or going to the gym or anything else, Command Central's got to be around it, and we start processing, how is my body responding to this change that I've made? And then we just keep building and building and building positive strategies. Yes?
Kind of have to challenge the little bit of cheese to keep your blood sugars normal for the protein. It's I think it's actually the fat content that stabilizes slows down the insulin, so that your blood sugar doesn't drop, because the foods that you identify as high protein are technically high fat foods, which is why it works.
No, cheese is a protein.
Yes, but it's
But-
majorly, it's,
Yeah, there's definitely a fat content
yeah,
there.
that's the main.
And so there's
contribution,
a
the fat.
few factors. Now, and basically we've been talking also about what happens if I take beans or legumes like lentils. What impact is that going to have glycemically? And what benefit am I going to have simply because now I have a technical carbohydrate that is strong in protein, not much fat.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna fix a
Is there
pot of
enough
beans at 8 o'clock at night.
But see, we'll have to work on that strategy.
Even though it's healthy.
Doesn't that sound relaxing? Yes, doctor.
It's more effective to treat the cause than the symptoms. When you're treating the low blood sugars at 2 in the morning,
Right.
you're going to take a snack at 8 at night every time.
Hmm.
It's better to treat the insulin resistance that led to the low blood sugars at 2 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
than to treat something that will raise your blood sugars.
There you go.
Well, I do eat a lot of glucose tablets at 2 o'clock in the morning.
At 2 o'clock in the morning. So as we go, back to the gentleman with an A1C of 13. So he trimmed off around 40 pounds. How's his body now going to respond to the foods that he's eating? Is it going to respond the same as when he was 230 pounds or 240
No,
pounds?
he's gonna respond a little bit faster.
He's going to not only respond faster, he's actually going to find that his glycemic control is much easier. And he's going to find that total body response, he's just changed the dynamics. So that's another component, part of this. Another component I'm going to touch on, even though I've really hit this in the past, this handout, take it home, read it. If you've not seen it before, spend a little time. I'm going to give you a brief rundown of what this is all about. We talk about gastric emptying, okay? So gastric emptying is when the stomach empties, okay, we're eating, and this study was, okay, they gave them a tablet that they followed with a metal detector, and they actually traced how much time it took to go through the system. Okay, so here we are. We're gonna give Jeff a pill to swallow, and then I'm gonna trace it through his system, and we're gonna see how long it takes from when he swallows it to when it exits, and then we're gonna look at what influences this. And it's fascinating. These studies have really shed a lot of light on how our GI tract works. This is especially significant for a diabetic, because I've also got some slides on gastroparesis, which we're not going to have time for today, but I'm going to be coming back and visiting, and I'm sure Doc Meyer is going to be touching on this as well, because it's so important. So this study went through and they said, okay, emptying time was impacted by the foods versus liquid, okay? So they gave folks liquids. Then they saw a close correlation toward the bottom of the page here between nutritive density and gastric emptying of the tablet. So in other words, folks eating solid foods it would slow the gastric emptying process down. A snack after breakfast further delayed gastric emptying, and they give you the times there, 201 minutes plus or minus 10. The largest delay on the back side here, the largest delay of gastric emptying was observed following ingestion of breakfast, lunch, dinner, and additional snacks. Okay? Welcome to our world. Everything, all the advertisements, oh, this is a great snack, oh, every diabetic should eat every 2 hours, okay? So now, all of a sudden, this study is telling us if we want to delay gastric emptying, give you 3 meals, give you a bunch of snacks, because the average delay of gastric emptying in a 24-hour period, 509 minutes, plus or minus 220.
That's a few hours.
Just a couple. So in other words, if I want your breakfast that you ate this morning to still be there by midnight tonight, I'm going to have you eat every 2 hours. Whoa. So now, not only if you're diabetic, we have problems with gastroparesis, we have problems with gastric emptying, we have all these problems made worse by high blood sugars. Now, I get you to eat every 2 hours because I'm going to feed into the problem. I got to tell you, it's great for business. Yes?
A lot of people aren't aware that gastroparesis is kind of victimless because you don't feel it.
Right.
Until you get the gastritis, until you have to go to the doctor for acid reflux.
Absolutely.
That's where I see these patients coming. And they're saying, doctor, how come I need to take all these medicines for my stomach? I just wake up with a sore throat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why do you wake up with a sore throat if you don't have a cold?
Right.
And so they do all these tests just to finally treat the symptoms. So they put them on proton blockers.
Right.
Reduce the acid in the stomach.
Right.
But nobody tells them, quit eating after 6 at night.
There you go. So again, with that mindset of the impact on the microorganisms of our GI tract, I now prescribe you a proton pump inhibitor. What's that going to do? Well, I got to tell you again, it skews the organisms. So I've got to wrap it up. But I got to tell you this. I want to induce some thought processes this next week. Yes.
The dentist looking at teeth, I'm seeing more and more acid reflux than I've ever seen before.
Okay.
Complaining of it. They have pit holes in their teeth.
Wow.
And they're all eating past. They're all eating plate. They're all eating meals.
Isn't that amazing?
Everyone.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, and so that's kind of where the proton pump inhibitors, I mean, you know, we talked about sulfonylureas, we've looked at and had you thinking about the impact on the microbiome of our GI tract. We touched briefly on peristalsis, you know, the gastroparesis, where literally we have a wave going and all of a sudden part of the group sits there and says, no, we're not going to play. Our GI tract does the same thing. So now you've got a segment over here that says, no, I'm not going to move. And then we have food that comes down and gets stuck there. And we have all these complications. We have the putrefaction. Great word, right? You know, so now we've just jacked up the potential for cancer and, you know, colon cancer, all this other stuff. And it's just exciting when we can leave this class with our minds going, you know what, I'm going to work on a meal schedule, I'm going to keep making positive lifestyle modifications, because if I can prevent a disease process, hallelujah. And then I'm going to start tapping into God's Word that tells me it's not salvational, and I shouldn't be stressed about what I'm eating. Our focus is not in the right place. If we're all stressed about this, and we've got to enjoy what we're doing, it shouldn't be a piece of cardboard. It's got to look good, it's got to taste good,
It smells good.
and it's got to smell good. Let's close with a word of prayer.
Yeah.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you again for this opportunity to come together to learn more about the fascinating bodies that you have given us and our total body response to what we're eating, what we're drinking. Lord, we ask you to be with us this next week and bring us all back again next week in Jesus' name. Have a wonderful vegetable-filled week.